Good morning everyone. So this is the lecture for class 12 subject physical education. We will be continuing with chapter number 8 and this is the lecture number 3. So in the last lecture we were talking about the types of movements, and that day we discussed gliding movements, angular movements, circumduction and your rotation. So today we are going to continue with the same topic and we are going to move further. So after those four movements which we discussed that day, today we are going to discuss the fifth movement, though there are several parts under it. So we are going to start with the very first part, which is hyperextension. Okay, so when we talk about hyperextension, if you divide this word in two parts, right? In two parts, hyper and extension. So you will understand that extension we have already discussed in the last lecture, and the meaning of extension is that when there is an increase, right? There is an increase in the angle. So there will be an increase in the angle, that is your extension. The angle between the two joints. It might be your elbow joint, knee joint, any of the joint. And when we talk about hyper, this word will tell you that there is an excess of something. So that means there is an excess of extension itself. So if we say that when we were talking about extension, that the degree or the angle would be not more than 180, right? 180 degrees, as you can see in the elbow, that if the elbow is all straight, for example, if this is your elbow joint, so this angle was 180. Same way when you talk about the leg or the knee joint, again the same thing, that if this is your knee, again this angle was 180 degrees. So you have to understand that when we are talking about the hyperextension, that means the angle would exceed 180 degrees. Now these kind of movements are possible in your back, okay, like backward bending or just bending your head back when you look up. So that particular movement is known as your hyperextension. Now for example, you can write backward bending, you may even write bending your head back. So all these are your hyperextension. Moving towards the next movement, so now all the movements which are given here are actually related to one another, or you can say that they are opposite to one another. So for your better understanding, what we are going to do is we are going to discuss two movements together so that it will be easier for you to learn them. So the second one is your dorsiflexion. Right? So in dorsiflexion, what happens is that it is like the bending of foot at the angle towards the chin. So it's just that your ankle, if this is your ankle, right? So what happened in dorsiflexion is that you bend your ankle upward. Means if the ankle was something like this, then you bend it towards your chin upward. That is your dorsiflexion. Just the opposite of it is your plantar flexion. And plantar flexion is same, that if ankle is here, so the bending of ankle downwards or towards the ground. So that means that if the ankle was something like this, if this is the joint and this is the ankle, then you just bend it downwards. So this is your plantar flexion, this is your dorsiflexion. So in dorsiflexion, the part is bended upward, right? And here it is downward. Okay. Next thing, which just the way of understanding it or just the way of learning, that it is termed as plantar means planting something. So you can relate it that if it is planting something, that means the bending would be downwards and just the opposite of it would be upward. The next two are your inversion and eversion. So in inversion, what happens is when there is this turning of foot inward, right? When the turning of foot is inward, it is inversion. D and E. Sorry. This is your inversion and eversion. As the name suggests, again, inversion, that means the body part is turning inward towards the midline. So if this is your sole, the sole of the foot, so if you bend it like this, turn this side towards the midline or towards the body inward, that is your inversion. And when it is outward, means if it is inward towards the midline, bending the foot towards the midline, that will be your inversion. And if you are bending the part or the foot outward, right, from the midline, then it will be your eversion. Very basic. The next is, you just need to learn them. Next is protraction and retraction. This is your protraction and retraction. So the other two movements are protraction and retraction. Protraction means moving a part forward. If this is the body, right, this is your head. So if you are moving any of the part of your body from the joint itself forward, that would be your protraction. And when we are talking about retraction, that means moving the body part backward. If you basically understand, like if this is the hand, if you can see it, that means that if I am just moving it forward like this from the shoulder itself, then this is your protraction, and when I am moving it backward, this is a retraction. Simple. So moving anything forward is your protraction, and moving any part backward. See, this is what you need to understand, that you are not moving from one place to another, right? You are not moving, you are not changing the place, or there is no distance covered. You are just making changes in the body itself, backward and forward. No changes in the direction or the distance of the body. Next two are elevation and depression. So this is elevation and depression. Elevation means raising a part of the body, just raising up. And depression means that lowering a part. So this is just in this raising a part of the body upward, and in this there is like lowering of a part. That's it. Like shrugging a shoulder. So shrugging a shoulder means that if like this is your shoulder, right? So you just, if the shoulders are moved or raised upward, then it will be called as your elevation. And if the shoulders are moved downward, like dropping your shoulders down, then that would be your depression. The next two are supination and pronation. So what do you understand? Supination and pronation, we have also talked about it when we were doing our yoga chapter. So the next two is supination and pronation. Sorry. So supination is just the turning of the hand so that the palm is upward like this. So if I have just turned my hand like this and my palm is facing upward towards the sky or the ceiling, this is your supination. And when it is just from the joint itself turned downward, from the joint turned downward, and when the palm is facing downward, it will be your pronation. So when the body part is turned upward, and when you talk about pronation, then the body part is turned downwards. Okay, understood? So this is the end of this subtopic types of movement. We did some of them in the last lecture and some of them in this lecture. I hope you might all have understood it. The next subtopic which we are going to do is Newton's law of motion. Okay, so next subtopic is Newton's law of motion. How Newton's law of motion helps you to understand the better performance or the movements which actually happen. So when we talk about the very first Newton's law of motion is our law of inertia. So in this point, in this law, we know that if any body is at rest, so the first point is, if any body is at rest, will remain at rest. If any body is moving, then it will keep on moving towards the same direction and with the same speed until and unless any external force is acting upon it. So until and unless any force is acted upon it. So the first law states that if there is any object which is at rest, it will remain at rest. If there is any object which is moving continuously, then that particular object will keep on moving until and unless there is some force acted upon it. So for example, if this is kept like this, right, now no force is on this particular tape, no force is there, and it will remain like this only. There will be no movement until and unless I will push, pull or drop it down because of the gravitational pull, right? Same way, if for example, if this might be like moving, continuously moving. Now if there is no friction, there is no air resistance, or if there is no gravitational pull, or if there is no one who is like catching, throwing or doing something else, then this particular object will keep on moving in the same direction. If it is moving forward, it will go front only. If it is like moving, rolling back, then it will roll back only. So in sports, how you are going to relate it? If they ask you to give you any example, so you can give the example of cricket, football, hockey, any of the game which you feel like, and you just have to relate it. How you are going to relate it is that, now if I say that there is a batsman who just hit the ball, so there is a batsman who like hit the ball, and this ball kept like going, and this is your boundary, for example. Now you might have seen in many of the cricket game, like obviously a keeper will come and take the ball, obviously the ball will be stopped, right? The ball might also stop because of the grassy area, because of the friction. Right? Now if you think, if there would be no friction, it will be a ice or a very smooth ground, then obviously the ball would not stop and it will go all far away. Okay, so you can give the example of a cricket ball or a hockey ball, football. So if a ball is kept in the center, for example, right, if a football is kept or a basketball is kept in the center of the ground, until and unless in football an individual is going to kick it, if nobody is kicking it, that ball will stay there like that only until and unless it is kicked by any of the player. Next, your law is your law of acceleration. Second is law of acceleration, right? Okay, so in this law it says that a change in motion of an object is directly proportional to the force producing it and inversely proportional to its mass. So I'll just write it, that the motion of an object, so motion is directly proportional to the force which is applied on it, right? And then it is inversely proportional to its mass. So they just wanted to say that motion will occur according to the force which is applied on it and according to its weight or the mass of that particular object, right? Now for example, I'll just tell you that if I am going to roll this tape, for example, if I have to roll this tape and if I push it hard with lot of force, then obviously it will go further away. If now the same thing, if the same tape is rolled and it is rolled like very lightly without like putting a lot of force into it, obviously it will not roll for a longer distance or move to a longer distance. Same way, if now for example that if I have a very lighter kind of a thing which I have to push, for example if I have to push a cricket ball, right, or if I have to throw a cricket ball, it would be easier for me as compared to putting a shot, because the weight of the shot is obviously more than the ball. So it is very simple that if an individual is putting more force, right, if you take an example, just rub it, if you take an example that if this ball, there are two balls, right, and the weight is same, this is of 2 kg, right, and this is also of 2 kg. Okay, now on ball A, if the force is more, and on B if the force is less, so what will happen is that this ball will go further away as compared to ball B. This was the example of the force which is applied on it. Now if we talk about the mass, now it is very simple that if I take a small cricket ball, okay, which is lighter, and if I have to throw it, then obviously its mass is relatively less as compared to a shot put. So if this is a cricket ball, right, and if this is a shot and I have to throw the shot, the cricket ball might cover a distance of 40 meters, for example. A shot might not cover a distance of even 5 meters. Why? Because of its mass. Its mass is more, its mass is less. So in both the cases you need to understand that on both of these equipments we have put the same force, right? We have putting the same force. That is why we are saying that it moved for like 40 and just moved for 5. Though the mass is different but the force is same. And here the mass was same but the force was different. So it will depending upon what kind of force or how much force are you putting on what kind of a equipment. So all this kind of a example you can give for law of acceleration, and you have to keep this thing in mind. You might be from science section, so even then if it is asked in physical, so you have to give the example of physical only education only. You have to relate it with sports and then accordingly answer, right, if any of the examples is like asked. Okay, point number 3 is the last law is law of reaction. Law of reaction. So this law says that there is always an equal and opposite reaction. So there is always an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, so if you are going to have you seen trampoline? Like if there is this kind of a trampoline, right? So it's a kind of thing which gives you bounce. So if you are going to jump on it, so it gives you the bounce back. So whatever force you are putting on this trampoline, the trampoline is going to put that force, opposite force towards you, and then you are going to gain a big bounce. So then that means that there is this equal and opposite reaction. Or if I throw a ball from a height, the ball will dribble back or bounce back from the ground. So whatever force I am going to put, with that particular force the ball will come upward. Now it depends on the force, that is a different thing, but there will be an equal and opposite reaction. Like if I'll just even if we walk, so even if we are walking, what we do is we kind of push the ground back or the surface on which we are walking. So we just with the leg we push it back and then move forward, and then again push it back and then move forward. So even if we are moving, right, so what we do is we kind of put this force on the ground, and by putting that force on the ground we move further. Another example can be of swimming, it can be of canoeing or rowing also. In swimming also what you do is you just, if you are doing this stroke, so what an individual do is you just push the water back and water pushes you forward. So in all these kind of games in sports, the law of reaction is used. So you can use any of the example which you understand well. You can give that example of in any of the Newton's law if it is asked, right? So you might have understood there are 3 laws of motion, and all 3 laws of motion are directly connected to games and sports. Many of the games and sports show the same kind of reactions and everything as we have learned in Newton's law of motion. The next topic which we are going to do is your friction. Now basically, though friction is not anymore in the course, but according to the guidelines we need to learn or study each and every point or topic which is given in the book, even if it is deleted. So we are going to do this friction topic also. So what is friction? The resistance that one surface or object encounters when moving over another. So friction is what? It is just the resistance which one encounters right when moving over another. Understood? Okay. So resistance, so this is friction. Like for example, if I am using this duster on the whiteboard. Now this duster is used on the whiteboard, so there is this friction which is acting upon both of them. that is the resistance, right? Now if I am going, now there can be a different kind of friction, as this is very smooth, right? So it will just move very smoothly, there will be less friction. Now if I'll use something which is like rough or which is like hard, if I say this, see, then it will not move that plane or soft. Okay, so that is your reaction, friction. Okay, and now we are going to move towards the types of frictions. And see, friction is used in games and sports every time. Even if you talk about a football player, a cricket player, or athletics, or any of the game, friction is there every time. So moving towards that, we are going to discuss that only. Before that, we are going to do the types of friction. Okay, so basically there are two types of friction. One is your static friction, another one is your dynamic friction. So in static friction, what happens is, so first one is your static. That in static friction, what happened, that there is this friction between two objects, but the objects are not moving. So if there is a box kept, right, on anything, so there is this friction which is happening. There is this friction, but this box is not moving anywhere. Still there is friction. So static means when there is no movement. So this kind of friction is there, but there will be no movement. The next one is your dynamic. So from the word you might have understood that dynamic means that there will be movements. Dynamic, right? So when we talk about dynamic, that means that there is this opposing force which come into play when one body tends to move over another. So one body like tends to move over another. It might be anything. Like for example, if I am saying that that if this duster is like moving, so there is this friction between the whiteboard and the duster, and this is moving. So this is your dynamic friction. This is your dynamic friction, right? Now dynamic friction will be of two types. One is your sliding, another one is your rolling. Sliding friction, as I gave you the example, this is your sliding friction when one object is kind of slides over another. And for the rolling friction, we have to take something which is in round figure, right? So this, what happens is, this is rolling, that this particular thing is rolling over another. So this is your sliding and rolling friction. That means that if there is a box and if you push that box by, okay, so this box will have, we are going to have this sliding friction. And for the rolling one, any circular thing, right, it keeps on rolling and moves forward, keeps on rolling and moves forward, that is your rolling friction. So after understanding what friction and the types of friction are, we are moving towards how friction is both advantageous and disadvantageous to our games and sports. Now if you might have seen that in cricket bat, you might have seen that in cricket bats, tennis, badminton or tennis rackets. So if you have seen, there is this grip made, right? So why these grips are made? So that there would be more and more friction, so that if your hands are slippery because of sweat or anything, so you can actually grip them properly. So they just don't, roll out of your hand or just slips out of your hand. So that is why in some cases like this, friction is necessary. Now you might have seen many of the shoes which we use, right? So if there are many of the shoes in which we have spikes. So if this is the sole of a shoe, in many of the shoes there are these kind of spikes which are like there, right? And these kind of shoes are basically used in your football, in your cricket, in athletics, many more. Why? Because so that on the ground you can have more and more friction so that you don't get slip from the ground. So that's why we use these kind of spikes so that friction can be there. Now in many of the races or many of the games, friction is disadvantageous also, because as you might have seen that if your cycle tires are flattened, for example, now if there is this cycle or any of the circle, if you roll it on a ground, then what happen is that it would be easier if it is like all full, right? So there will be less friction. Now if there will be more friction, what will happen if this is like a flattened tire? So it will be difficult for you to move your cycle forward, right? So in games like cycling and many other, if you have friction there, then it will be disadvantageous for you. So friction is both advantageous and disadvantageous. That is why it is known as the necessary evil in games and sports, because it is necessary also, it is like important, but in some cases it acts like it is a evil. Now the homework for this session, for the class. So you need to explain the Newton's law of motion in relation to sports. So it is Newton's law of motion, and you need to give the example of sports only, so related with your games and sports, and answer it. Question number 2 is you need to explain dorsiflexion, elevation and pronation. So this is the homework for this lecture number 3. That question number 1, explain the Newton's law of motion with relation to games and sports only. Question number 2, explain dorsiflexion, elevation and pronation. In lecture number 2, the questions which were given were flexion. So you need to, I just explain you. So the first question was about flexion. So here we are talking about lecture number 2 homework. So question number 1 was about flexion. So what is flexion? In which there is a decrease in the angles between the two joints. An example you can give of elbow joint or hip joint. The next question was, what is the difference between abduction and adduction? What is the difference between abduction and adduction? As I said, that any part which is moving towards the midline, if this is the midline, if any part is moving towards the midline, this is your adduction, that means it is adding towards the body. And if any body part which is moving farther away from the midline, that is your adduction. So these both are opposite to each other. Abduction means moving further away, adduction means coming towards the midline. Last question was your explain extension. Extension is just the opposite of flexion. So question 3 was extension. So what is extension? In which there is an increase in the angles of joint. And again you may give the same example of knee or your elbow joint. Okay, so this is the end of your lecture. Thank you.